There is a concept in architecture called the aquarium effect. It's a simple idea. When you are inside a lit room at night, the windows turn into mirrors. You look at the glass, and all you see is your own reflection. You see your furniture, your TV, your family. You feel safe because you are enclosed. But from the outside, in the dark, the glass is transparent. To the person standing in your backyard, you are on a stage. They can see what you're eating. They can see what you're watching. They can see when you go to the kitchen, and they can see when you head up the stairs to go to sleep. We live our lives assuming that if someone was watching us, we would know. We trust that we would feel eyes on us. But that's a lie we tell ourselves to sleep at night. My name is Mark. I live in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And in January of 2026, my neighborhood found out the hard way that the glass we use to keep the cold out doesn't keep the monsters out. This is the story of the man who didn't just watch. He wanted us to know he was watching. I've lived on McCullough Lane for about 3 years now. It's a nice area, not too fancy, not too rundown. It's one of those dense suburban pockets you find all over Montgomery County. You know the type, rows of townhouses packed together like sardines with tiny little postage stamps for backyards. The layout is pretty standard. Front door faces the street. Back door faces a communal easement or a small patch of woods. And almost every single house has the same feature. A big sliding glass door on the ground level leading out to the patio. I liked the glass door. It let in a ton of light during the day. In the summer, I'd leave it open with the screen door shut to get a breeze going. It felt open, airy. My wife Sarah and I have a routine. I work in IT, usually remote a few days a week, and she's a nurse with shifting hours. We're night owls. We usually stay up late watching movies or gaming in the living room, which is right off that back patio. December 2025 was a weird month. It was unseasonably warm for a few weeks, then freezing cold. The holidays came and went. It was that quiet lull period between Christmas and New Year's where nobody really knows what day it is. The vibe in the neighborhood was sleepy. A lot of people were away visiting family, so the parking lots were half empty. It felt peaceful. But looking back, I realize how exposed we were. See, the thing about our neighborhood is that the backyards connect. There's no big fence separating the blocks. There's just a grassy strip, maybe a few trees, and a drainage ditch. If you wanted to, you could walk from one end of Silk Cotton Way all the way down to McCullough Lane without ever stepping on a sidewalk. You could stay in the shadows the whole time. I never thought about it. I treated my backyard like it was private property. If I was in the kitchen at midnight getting a glass of water, I didn't think twice about the fact that the blinds were open. I remember one night specifically, Christmas Eve, actually, December 24th. I was up late wrapping some last-minute gifts. It was maybe 2 a.m. Sarah was already asleep upstairs. I was in the living room, surrounded by wrapping paper and Scotch tape. I had the TV on low volume. I had this moment where I just stopped. I looked up at the sliding glass door. The vertical blinds were open about halfway. Beyond the glass, it was pitch black. For a split second, I thought I saw something move. Just a shift in the darkness, like a shadow detaching itself from a tree trunk. I stared at the spot for a good 10 seconds. Nothing, just the wind moving the branches. I chuckled to myself. "You're watching too many scary movies, Mark," I thought. I finished wrapping the gifts, turned off the lights, and went to bed. I didn't know it then, but I wasn't paranoid. At that exact moment, 2 blocks away, a neighbor of mine was waking up to a nightmare. I didn't find out about the December 24th incident until weeks later, when the police report started circulating on the neighborhood Facebook group. Apparently, at 3:46 in the morning, less than 2 hours after I went to bed, a woman on the next street over walked into her kitchen. She lived in a ground floor unit, just like mine. She hadn't pulled her curtains all the way shut. She was getting a glass of milk, half asleep. She turned toward the sliding glass door. Standing there, pressed right up against the glass, was a man. He wasn't trying to break in. He wasn't jiggling the handle. He was just standing there. The police report said he was exposing himself. Imagine that. You're in your pajamas, in the safety of your own home, on Christmas morning. And 3 feet away, separated only by a 1/4 inch of tempered glass, is a stranger getting off on your fear. She screamed. Obviously, the guy didn't panic. He didn't scramble away like a frightened animal. He just turned and walked into the darkness. Casual, like he was finishing a cigarette break. By the time the cops arrived, he was gone. They patrolled the area, shined their spotlights into the woods, but you know how it goes. "We'll file a report, ma'am. Keep your doors locked." Life went on. The holidays ended. We all went back to work. But the atmosphere on the street changed. You could feel it. People started closing their blinds a little earlier. The Nextdoor app was blowing up with people asking about motion sensor lights. I started being more careful too. I checked the lock on the slider every single night before bed. Locked, safe, but a lock only stops someone from coming in. It doesn't stop them from looking in. January 7th. That was the day everything escalated. It was a Wednesday. I was working late in my office, which faces the front of the house. Sarah was downstairs in the living room reading. Around 6:40 p.m., Sarah came running up the stairs. She looked pale. "Mark," she said, her voice shaking. "I think there's someone in the backyard." I jumped up. "What? Did you hear something?" "No," she said. "I saw a shadow. I was sitting on the couch, and I saw a shadow move across the curtains." Now, our curtains aren't blackout. They're those sheer white ones. If someone walks past the patio light, they cast a silhouette. I grabbed a heavy flashlight, a mag light I keep in the drawer, and went downstairs. I felt that rush of adrenaline, that mix of protective anger and fear. I walked to the back door. I didn't open it immediately. I peeked through the slit in the curtains. Nothing. Just the empty concrete patio and the 2 plastic chairs we keep out there. I unlocked the door and slid it open. The cold winter air hit me like a slap. "Hello?" I yelled. "Who's out here?" Silence. I stepped out onto the patio, shining my light into the common area behind the house. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the dead grass and the bare trees. There was nobody there. I went back inside and locked the door. "It was probably a deer," I told Sarah, "or maybe a neighbor walking their dog." She didn't look convinced. "It looked tall, Mark. It looked like a person." We spent the rest of the night with every single light in the house turned on. We felt vulnerable. But here's the thing about that night. We weren't the only ones he visited. While I was scanning my backyard at 7 p.m., the guy was already moving on. He was moving to Silcotton Way, and he had upgraded his toolkit. If you know anything about criminology, or if you watch enough true crime, you know that peeping Toms are usually passive. They want to be ghosts. They hide in the bushes. They use binoculars. The whole thrill is seeing without being seen. But this guy, Steven, he was different. He was evolving. Later that same night, January 7th, around 10:30 p.m., a family on Silk Cotton Way had an experience that honestly terrifies me more than a break-in. They were in their living room, TV on, relaxing. Suddenly, the room exploded with light. It wasn't the overhead light turning on. It was a beam, a concentrated, high-powered beam of white light blasting through their sliding glass door. The guy wasn't hiding in the dark anymore. He was standing on their patio, holding a tactical flashlight, and he was shining it into their home. Think about the psychology of that for a second. When you shine a light into a dark room, you see everything. But when you shine a light into a lit room, you blind the people inside. The family froze. They looked at the window, but all they could see was the glare, a wall of white. They couldn't see if he was holding a weapon. They couldn't see his face. They just knew that someone was standing right there watching them panic. It was aggressive. It was a power move. He wasn't just peeping anymore. He was hunting. He was saying, "I can see you. I can touch you with this light, and there is nothing you can do about it." The homeowner, a dad like me, ran to the door. He shouted. The light clicked off. By the time the dad got the door open, the backyard was empty again, just the darkness. This became the pattern, the flashlight technique. He would prowl the neighborhood. He would find a house where the aquarium effect was strong, and then he would hit them with the light. It creates a primal panic. You feel like a deer in the headlights. You feel exposed. The neighborhood Facebook group went from concerned to hysterical. Did anyone else see a light in their yard last night? I found footprints in the mud by my AC unit. Someone tried my door handle at 3 a.m. We were under siege, and we didn't even know what he looked like. He was just a silhouette, a shadow with a flashlight. I started losing sleep. Every time a car drove by and its headlights swept across my living room wall, I flinched. I started keeping a baseball bat next to the couch. I told Sarah, "If you see him again, don't look. Just run upstairs and call 911. She asked me, "What if he tries to come in?" I didn't have an answer for that. And then came January 15th. January 15th, a Thursday. It was bitter cold that night, the kind of cold that hurts your face. I was in bed early. Sarah was working a night shift, so I was alone in the house. I had double-checked the locks. I had even put a wooden dowel rod in the track of the sliding glass door. An old trick my dad taught me to stop it from being forced open. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. It wasn't a text. It was a notification from my security system. I had installed a camera on the back patio 2 days earlier, specifically because of the rumors. Motion detected. Back patio. I grabbed my phone. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I opened the app. The feed loaded. It was grainy, black and white night vision. At first, I didn't see anything. Just the gray concrete of the patio and the black void of the yard. Then, the motion sensor light on the camera clicked on. He was there. A man, wearing dark clothing. A hoodie pulled up. He was standing right in front of my door. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was leaning forward, cupping his hands around his eyes, pressing his face against the glass of my living room door. He was trying to see inside. I watched, frozen, as he scanned my living room. He was looking at my TV, my couch, my life. Then he reached down, I saw his hand grasp the handle of the door. He pulled. The door shuddered, but the lock and the dowel rod held firm. He didn't give up. He pulled again, harder. I heard the thump-thump of the metal frame hitting the lock all the way upstairs. That snapped me out of it. I didn't call 911, not yet. I did something stupid, something fueled by 2 weeks of fear and anger. I grabbed the baseball bat. I ran down the stairs. I wanted to catch him. I wanted to scare him off. I wanted to make him stop. I flew down the stairs and burst into the living room. I flipped the patio light switch. The sudden light illuminated him perfectly. He was taller than I expected, thin. He looked startled. He jumped back from the glass. I unlocked the door and threw it open. "Hey!" I screamed. "Get the hell out of here!" He stood there on the edge of the patio, about 10 feet away from me. He didn't run. He just looked at me. His eyes were wide, but not scared. They looked empty, like a shark's eyes. "What are you doing?" I yelled, stepping out onto the concrete, gripping the bat. That's when he reached into his pocket. I expected a flashlight. I expected him to blind me again. Instead, I saw a flash of silver. He pulled out a knife. It wasn't a small pocket knife. It looked like a kitchen knife, maybe 6 inches long. The patio light caught the blade. My stomach dropped. The anger evaporated, replaced by cold, hard terror. This wasn't a peeping Tom anymore. This was a man prepared to kill. He didn't say a word. He just took a step toward me. He swung the knife in a lazy arc, slashing the air between us. It was a warning. "Back off!" I froze. I raised the bat, but my arms felt like lead. We stood there for what felt like an eternity. Just 2 men on a freezing patio in Gaithersburg. One defending his home, the other defending his right to invade it. Then, just as quickly as it started, he turned. He sprinted toward the woods. I didn't chase him. I slammed the door shut, locked it, put the dowel rod back in, and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. "He has a knife," I told the dispatcher. "He's armed." The police arrived in force this time. I'm talking 5 cruisers, lights blazing. They took my statement. They watched the camera footage. When they saw the knife, the mood shifted. This wasn't a nuisance call anymore. This was first-degree assault. "We're going to get him," an officer told me. "We have a description now. We have a pattern." But Steven Adams didn't stop. 5 days later, January 20th, the police were ready. They knew he liked the tiny imitations of nature, the drainage ditches, the wood lines. They didn't just send patrol cars. They sent the air support unit. They launched a drone, a high-tech thermal imaging drone that can see body heat from hundreds of feet in the air. While Adams was creeping through a neighborhood in Durwood, thinking he was invisible in the shadows, the drone was tracking him. He was doing it again. The drone operator watched as Adams walked up to a ground-floor apartment window. He watched as Adams pressed his face to the glass. He watched as Adams exposed himself. The drone operator radioed the units on the ground. "Suspect is at the rear of Building 4. He is peering into the window." The net closed in. When the officers swarmed, Adams ran. But you can't outrun a drone. They caught him in the woods. They tackled him. When they searched him, they found the kit, the flashlight, the dark clothes. And just like that, the reign of the flashlight stalker was over. I watched the news report the next day. They showed his mugshot. Steven Jarezz Adams, 32 years old. He looked so normal, just a guy. If you saw him at the grocery store, you wouldn't look twice. But then they listed the charges: first-degree assault, peeping Tom, indecent exposure, trespassing. The first-degree assault charge was the big one. In Maryland, that carries up to 25 years. They slapped him with that because of the knife incident. Because when he swung that blade at me, or at the other victim on McCullough Lane, he showed that he wasn't just there to look. He was willing to destroy. It's been a few weeks since the arrest. The neighborhood is quiet again, but it's not the same. The aquarium effect is broken. We can't unknow what we know. I don't leave my blinds open anymore, not even during the day. We put a frosted film over the lower half of the sliding glass door, so light comes in, but nobody can see in. I spent $3,000 on a privacy fence, 6 feet tall, no gaps. Sarah still has trouble sleeping. Every time the wind blows a branch against the siding, she jumps. We talk about moving, getting away from the ground floor. Maybe a high-rise condo where nobody can look in unless they can fly. Because the truth is, the police caught Steven Adams, but they didn't catch the fear. Every time I walk into my kitchen at night to get a glass of water, I have to force myself not to look at the glass door. Because I know that somewhere out there are other people like him. People who realize that the suburbs are just a collection of glass boxes filled with unsuspecting victims. And all it takes is a flashlight to turn your sanctuary into a stage. So, do me a favor. Tonight, when you're sitting in your living room, scrolling through your phone or watching TV, take a look at your window. Is it dark outside? Is your light on? Can you see what's in your yard? Or can you only see your own reflection staring back at you? And if you look closely, really closely, is there a shadow standing just behind your reflection? Go check your locks. This story serves as a reminder that the most terrifying things aren't always supernatural. Sometimes it's just a human being with a broken moral compass and a flashlight. If you have a story about a peeping Tom, a stalker, or a home invasion, send it to the email in the description below. Stay safe, keep your blinds closed, and I'll see you in the next video.